Thursday edition of Sports Talk from A to Z. I'm Avery Schaefer, back here once again with my host, Zan Bando. And before we get into content, we have a few announcements as far as changes we've made to our social media presence. So Zan, why don't you tell our viewers what those are?
So we decided, for those of you who follow us on Instagram, it is no longer Sports Talk from A to Z. It is ST, just to make it shorter now. It's ST dot from A to Z, just straight through. So now you're no longer going to see the underscores anymore. And when you go to our page, you can actually see that it's now a podcast. So it's going to be the name of our podcast now moving forward. And then for those of you who noticed that we posted our full-length episodes on our Instagram, we're going to start to do that again, as I am officially taking over the presence of running the Instagram account. So stay tuned for some ideas that I have of how we're going to brand it. And of course, we'll take any suggestions that you guys have, but for now I am taking over the reins of that, while Avery's responsibility is editing the videos, sending them over to me as files. That way I can post them on Instagram for you guys to easily watch every week.
I will be sharing the content responsibilities with Zan, as I have before. If you guys have any suggestions for content you want to see or topics you want covered, feel free to reach us on either YouTube or Instagram, as both of us will be routinely checking the Instagram and the YouTube comments. So feel free to get into dialogue with us. We look forward to it. With that, let's get to some content, shall we?
Yes. Not only can you reach us on our show Instagram, you can also reach me personally. I'm at ZanBando99 on all platforms. My direct messages are always open. So if you guys have any questions about anything related to the show, I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have, as I frequently check my direct messages on a regular basis. So feel free to reach out there. And I will be sure to get back to any inquiries that you guys may have. But yes, moving on to the content for today's show. Today's show is going to be mainly focused on the NBA restart, which tips off in about an hour and 15 minutes or so, with the first tip, the Utah Jazz playing tonight. It's the first of three, or I think it's 4 games that you'll see tonight for the NBA restart. So sports are slowly getting back into the fray of things. So we're gonna be covering that, and we'll also be giving our picks for the NBA Finals. If you guys didn't listen on Tuesday, you guys will get to hear our picks once again. So stay tuned for that as well.
So let me just dive straight into it. What are you expecting from this restart? It's going to be crazy. It's going to be madness. So how do you make sense of all this madness?
I think it's going to be good to see the NBA restart a bit, just to get some sort of normalcy back into the 4 major sports. It's going to be interesting to see which teams qualify for the postseason, because some people forget that the season is not quite over yet. There's still a lot more to go. They're going to do a shortened finish to the regular season and then go right into the postseason. So it is going to be very interesting to see how they restart. As some of you may know, the NBA is in a bubble in Orlando, while the NHL is in 2 separate hosts. The NHL is in a bubble in Edmonton. So that's going to be
Edmonton and Toronto.
And Toronto, that's right, yes. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of how both sports correlate. There's going to be a lot of content to consume over the next 4 to 5 days as sports really kicks back into gear, like really officially starting tonight. Because now there's going to be a plethora of sports on to watch, which means nobody can make the excuse now that there's nothing on TV to watch. So there's that as well.
And I read earlier this morning that the NBA, for the first time ever since they've been in the bubble, according to Yahoo Sports, the report I read this morning, they have had 0 positive cases of coronavirus among players or staff at the most recent test result.
Which is really, really, really impressive considering how many players you have to account for, how many teams there are in Orlando. I mean, it's a testament to what the NBA has tried to do, and they should be extremely proud.
Which leads me into the article that's going to be the focus of today's discussion, which is exactly that. It is called Unblocked. It basically made the case that the NBA is the best league of all the 4 major sports. Do you buy that?
No, because I have a bias towards a 5th sport that nobody talks about. So I would say no. They haven't proven anything to me yet as them being the best of the 4 major sports. I think out of all the sports that have returned, the UFC has done the best job during this whole pandemic.
Now, for our viewers who don't know this, when Zan talks about the UFC, it should be taken with a grain of salt because he is a bit of a UFC guru.
I sure am.
Yes. So keep that in mind anytime he mentions the UFC. Not trying to discredit him or anything, but he may know a little bit too much about the UFC to be entirely normal. Just saying.
I totally understand what you're saying, but in terms of just the 4 major sports and not counting them, you may have to make the argument that the NBA is doing the best job, considering that at least so far there are no positive cases. So
yeah. Not only that, but it is also doing an amazing job on the social justice front too. As we've talked about, the NBA has approached social justice in what I would say is the most acceptable way of all the 4 major sports. Led, of course, by the likes of LeBron James and Stephen Curry, but they have handled all the political and social turmoil that they've been through in recent years really well, especially the Lakers with LeVar Ball. And I am not going to hide this. I am not a LeVar Ball fan.
And a lot of people aren't.
I love watching Lonzo play back at UCLA, but using your son as essentially a brand that's a line. that should not have been crossed. To me.
True. There's no denying that. And then especially how cocky he is too. For sure. I mean, it's been well documented in numerous interviews and other forums. So yeah, he is he's his own character that he has to deal with. So that's a topic for another day. We could get into a whole discussion on all the crazy things LeVar Ball has said.
Yeah, that's a whole different can of worms. But for today, I'm gonna pull it back to the restart. And to do that, first of all, who are your picks to advance to the playoffs and ultimately win the finals?
Well, I think you're gonna see the Raptors play the Bucks in the Eastern Conference Finals, and I think you're gonna see the Lakers. I think you're gonna see the Lakers make it to the West Finals, probably against. I would argue Houston, and then you're gonna see the Lakers play the Bucks in the championship.
Wow. The Lakers are young, talented, and they have a leader like LeBron James, but I honestly don't think they have enough to win a series.
Win one series?
They are, to me, what Cleveland was a couple years ago, where LeBron is going to have to take over that team. And with the exception of perhaps former Big Ten Ohio State star D'Angelo Russell, I don't think they have enough. I honestly don't.
I would have not predicted that.
But interesting team to watch, for sure.
Who would be your dark horse pick?
I was telling you this earlier today, and my dark horse is really the Orlando Magic. I think the Magic are coming back. They're going to pull a rabbit out of their hat because of a 21-year-old superstar by the name of Luka Doncic.
So you're riding with him. You believe in him.
He is going to lead the Magic to victory. I honestly feel like they're going to win it all.
That's a shocking pick. I would be absolutely stunned if that was real.
I've made predictions on this show before.
Yes, you did say we're going to the Super Bowl this season if there was a season.
Yeah, I have made predictions on this show before that on the surface may seem a little bit outlandish. But mark my words, in Orlando, Luka Doncic in the bubble, NBA Finals MVP, the Orlando Magic win it all for the first time since 1990, I believe.
Let me verify. They've never won a championship.
Okay. Then I'll revise what I said. I will say that the Orlando Magic are going to bring their first title home in 2020.
Well, with how weird this year has been, you can't be surprised with anything anymore. I would just be surprised at the fact if they even made it that far. That would be the crazy part.
Well, I really think they're going. So, there's been another debate over the past couple seasons. Nothing to do with the bubble. But, is Trae Young, the former Sooner, a reincarnation of Stephen Curry? Do you buy it?
It's too hard to tell. What do you think?
I do not buy that in any stretch of the imagination. Because Stephen Curry, right?
Mm-hmm.
When he started, the league was not a three-point dominated league. I would argue that he was one of the players that caused that transformation to take place. Now, Trae Young fits into the mold of that. Obviously, he is a great three-point shooter. He didn't miss a couple years ago in the NCAAs. But I think to say that he's a reincarnation of Steph, it is totally off. I would say that he is following in the footsteps of what a good NBA player is right
now. Okay. And how much longer do you think it will take him to develop?
Oh, give it another. Well, to mention one of our former Illini, I would argue greats. He's like a slightly more advanced Kofi Coburn to me.
Okay, and for viewers who don't know, who would you be referring to?
I would be referring to arguably the best young player in Big Ten basketball in the last 5-10 years.
And who would that be?
Kofi Coburn. Who, and check me on these numbers, unless you know them off the top of your head. But I believe last season he averaged something ridiculous like 38% from three, or something like that. I believe it was 2.5 blocks per game, right?
Okay, as of last season, he averaged in 31 games, he played 27 minutes, and averaged averaged 8.6 rebounds per game, 1.4 blocks, and shot and had a 53% field goal percentage, averaging 13.3 points per game.
That's not too shabby. Like Malcolm Hill like numbers. I just missed the Malcolm Hill era.
So did I.
Yeah, and I was one of the things I was most excited about going to University of Illinois. I know I'm tooting my own horn here, guys, but I really wanted to see Malcolm Hill play. And I'm mad I missed him. With that tangent out of the way, there is a former Illini guard in the NBA right now.
And I think I know who you're going to say.
Who I knew would be in the NBA from the second I saw him play. That would be the Miami Heat's Kendrick Nunn.
Right.
So is it fair to say that over the last few years, Illinois has produced some of the if not great, really good NBA players that are out there?
Well, yeah, and then I think there's going to be more to come if Io makes his decision on August 3rd to go to the NBA. There's a chance that Kofi could leave, but I highly doubt it now. There's conflicting reports out about his combine status. It looks like he did not receive an invite, from what I understand. So I think just looking at those two, Io's probably going to go and Kofi's probably going to stay. And draft scouts have said that he's not even ready for the league yet. So we'll see. But I think you're gonna see Io DeSumo become the next great NBA player that wore a U of I uniform.
For those who don't know him, who is your comparison to a current NBA player for Io?
Io plays. I would argue. Okay, do you remember when like Avery Bradley used to be really good for Boston like a couple years ago?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
He would make all of those clutch shots in the big moments and all that. He plays when he's hot. He plays like he's Avery Bradley. But I think Io DeSumo has his own swagger to him though, so it's difficult to compare him to another player just because he's kind of his own breed in so many ways. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So, age-old question about the NBA game in general.
Okay.
Why, for the love of God, are some of the best players to ever play the game some of the worst free throw shooters to ever play the game? What's with that?
That's one that's very difficult to answer. I don't know, but like you, it frustrates the heck out of me whenever I do watch somebody that I know is good everywhere else on the floor, but they can't make free throws in the big moments, because I agree with the two adages that defense wins games and that you win the game at the free throw line. So I don't know.
Like a Shaq, he was terrible from the free throw line. I read something that if Kobe Bryant, back when he was playing, missed 4,000 consecutive free throws, he would still have a better free throw percentage than Shaq ever did. Wrap your head around that for a minute.
That is, I mean, that's got to be some sort of record because I don't think anybody else would come close to the number 4,000. Am I right?
And you're right. And to compare one of the greatest free throw shooters of all time to that, do you know how many times Steve Nash stepped up to the line and how many times he sunk the ball?
He went up to the line a lot, but I don't remember him being a consistent free throw shooter at all.
Well, let me give you these numbers. Throughout the course of his career,
okay,
he stepped up to the line 3,084 times, right?
Okay.
He made that shot 3,060 of those times.
So he was a legitimate free throw shooter,
which works out to 94.3%.
That's absolutely insane.
From the line. And it stands as the best percentage for the free throw of anyone in the NBA. Still. So.
And it's going to be tough to beat, I would guess, right?
Right. So all this tangential stuff is to get to the point that the team that makes the most foul shots
most likely wins the game. There's a higher probability that they're going to win in the game against whoever the opposition is. Is that fair?
That's fair. And I would go one step further. The one who makes the most foul shots wins the 2020 championship. I know that's something that people say every season. Every NBA season, people say that. But this year, it's especially true. I wouldn't argue. So, which leads me to another question of the day. Who are some of your players to watch as this NBA restarts?
It'll be interesting to see how Russell Westbrook looks. It'll be interesting to see how Trae Young looks. It'll be interesting to see how LeBron James looks, because I know this whole pandemic has hit him kind of hard a little bit. It'll be interesting to see how Giannis looks. If Giannis is still the same for Milwaukee, we'll see. It'll be a very interesting restart. I'm looking forward to it.
Of the teams who could potentially make the playoffs, I said earlier that my unlikely joking pick was the Orlando Magic. But my more serious pick, and they have not won an NBA Finals title either, if I'm not mistaken, and that would be the Denver Nuggets. Have they ever won?
Let me double check.
I don't think so.
Let me double check.
Also, what a team name, the Nuggets.
The Denver Nuggets have never won an NBA championship, and the closest they have come was in 2009 when they lost in the Western Conference Finals.
I think they're going to be a team to watch if they make it in. Because of Nikolai Jokic. And did you hear that the NBA is now suspending players for missing coronavirus tests?
Yes, what do you think about that? Do you think that's fair? Because I do.
I completely agree with it. And I wish more sports would be taking this as seriously as the NBA. Adam Silver, you are the best commissioner the NBA has ever seen. You care about your product. You globalize it with the China League. Granted, that situation is not great with the political backing behind that, but still, what you have done for the NBA is just a fan's dream, a coach's dream, a staffer's dream. You have done a great job.
Yeah, and he took a stand on social justice, which I don't, Roger Goodell did, but it was like a pre-planned statement. He actually like took a stand on social justice rather, that you have to commend him for.
Yeah, especially as your. If I could bring up a point here, I think that if you're from the Aryan race, so to speak, we are in a climate where you are hesitant to take a stand. Because if you do, you're going to largely get ridiculed for it. And Silvers didn't care about that. He took a stand. Anyway, he said, I'm a human. And that's what more people need to be able to say. You don't need to be a minority group member to stand in solidarity with them. If you are, you can do it more safe. You can do it in a safer environment, but you don't need to be. That's a misconception that I feel like a lot of people have.
Right.
Yeah.
100%.
So with that out of the way, now that I've praised Adam Silver, it's time to not praise someone. And that someone is Roger Goodell. To think that we can have.
I think he's being extremely selfish. What about you?
To think that we can have an NFL season at all this year with all the players who have opted out. Just check on this, but I think it's something like 20 players.
Around that, yeah.
That is almost the equivalent of 2 complete teams. 2 complete teams of players.
Wait a minute. Let me see if you do the math. No, it's nearly about one team because there's a 53-man roster. So if there's 20 players, that's 40, and you need 53 to fulfill one team.
But 11 of them are on the field at any one given time.
Okay, fair. I thought you meant like team as a whole.
No,
Okay.
I meant one complete playing team.
Okay, okay. I see where you're going with this now.
Does that make sense?
Yes, 100%.
Sorry, viewers, for a bit of confusion there, but if one playing team has opted out, you cannot have a season. I don't care how many billions of dollars you have in your back pocket. Player safety, which has never been a concern of Roger Goodell's and is a concern of Adam Silver's, should be the top priority. Because if you don't have players, guess what you also don't have? You don't have a sport.
Right. And when Roger Goodell says that he does care, he's actually lying to the world, right?
His name should be Roger Goodell, because he is not good. He is a twisted, money-seeking eyeball hog that has done nothing good for the NFL. Now, granted, this statement is coming from someone who doesn't think the NFL should exist at all because it's too unsafe. And there is no way to make it safer. No way whatsoever. And keep the integrity of the game. There's no way.
So are you saying the NFL shouldn't exist, or are you saying football shouldn't exist?
Football, as a sport, should cease to exist. And currently, over the last 100 years, that has meant the NFL. With the exception of a couple years before they merged, but football is just too militant and dangerous. But that is completely a different topic than what we sought to talk about today.
Because I highly disagree with you on various things about that.
Okay, let's change tack then. Come at me.
So you have to understand that even though it is dangerous, football is like, it's meant to be like one of America's pastimes, right? And they've also made the game safer so the game can more so open up to the offenses now. So now the quarterback has more time to throw the ball, which leads to more high-scoring games, ratings, and more excitement. And you see closer games too. You see extremely close games. The majority of the games every week are super close. And as a matter of fact, the Super Bowl brings in billions of dollars. It's the most watched television event of the year every year, and it brings in a lot of people, even people that aren't football fans. So to say football shouldn't exist is kind of a little bit extreme, considering how many people really do take football seriously, and they really make it their main sport of choice to either play or participate in some capacity. So I think your argument that football should cease to exist is a little bit extreme, just considering what football has done for a lot of different people.
Okay, I will admit that football is a way out of poverty. doesn't excuse the fact that people have died on the football field directly as a result of injuries sustained during play, and that if you took all the power generated through your average football game in watts, do you know how long it would power your average American home? Well, let me tell you, 1 week, one game. Every collision on that field generates the same amount of force as a 35-mile-an-hour car crash. And I have documentation for these claims that I will leave in the description for our viewers to peruse. But all this is to say that football is, and always has been, an extremely dangerous sport.
And I'm not denying that. But to say that it shouldn't exist, I think, is a little bit extreme.
So how do you make it safe? I know they've introduced some rules. Like, do they have do they have an equivalent of the collegiate targeting rule in the NFL?
Yeah, you can get ejected from a game for targeting. Yeah.
Do you think these rule changes are actually helping make the game safer?
It depends, but I'm going to tell you what, the rule that they got rid of a year ago, which was to do instant replay of everything, made the game take so long. And they still got some crucial calls wrong in some very important games last year. I mean, there is always going to be mistakes. So there's no denying that. I mean, there are parts of the game that are unsafe, but some of it just goes with playing the game. There are just certain aspects that you simply can't make safer because tackling is a part of the sport. The issue is that from a young age, some players aren't taught how to properly tackle. Which, when I say that, I mean by using their head as a weapon. They shouldn't be doing that anymore. They should be using their actual body to go lower on them. That way there's less risk of injury, even though sometimes there still is injury. That's a whole nother discussion, but there are some aspects where you just can't make the game safer.
So okay, maybe my claim was a little harsh, that it shouldn't exist. But kids, if you're watching this and you play football, all I'm saying is be very, very, very careful, because you could have life-altering injury if you're not. That's all I'm saying here. And just so that we don't end on such a grim note, is there something positive you want to leave our viewers with?
Positive outlook is we're officially starting sports in a matter of a little bit, like we're officially starting the relaunch of the NBA tonight, which means before you know it, sports will be back in full force. And now, like I said before, there will be no excuse as to what as to what people will say when they say they can't watch anything. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this restart goes, and we'll be sure to follow it. And on a positive note, I just hope that everybody enjoys themselves for the remainder of this week and into next weekend. And you guys should look forward to what we have in store, because I think we're going to have some good things coming up here soon. We might get back to that whole island talk thing, but that's another discussion. But for now, thank you very much for tuning into this. We really appreciate the support, and look out for some brand new content on Instagram. As for those of you that are just skipping to the end of the episode to see what we have for next week, I will be the new content creator for our brand new Instagram page. You can follow us at st.a to z, so that way it's not as long and difficult to find, and you'll see our actual name is now the name of the show, so that will make things a whole lot easier for you guys to cruise around and see what's in store. So thank you guys again for the support. We really appreciate it.
And we look forward to your comments on these videos. Please, please don't hesitate to reach out to either of us. My personal Instagram can be found at QNA with A on Instagram. I look forward to talking to some of you guys about the show or about anything. Until next time, we will see you next Tuesday for a new episode of the new and improved Sports Talk
From
A to Z. Bye, guys.
Have a good one.